Hi, you're watching Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm Frank Morano. John Tobacco will be checking in with us from Florida momentarily. Meantime, you're in for a treat, we hope, because Jeffrey Lichtman is here, and rumor is he has quite a bit to get off his chest. Jeff, in addition to being a criminal defense attorney, sort of your hobby is being a public policy analyst and a vociferous critic of terrorism.
Well, who's not a critic of terrorism,
well, I
Frank?
can think of a few people.
Unless you're a member of Al-Qaeda, I would think that you'd be a critic as well.
I haven't heard Ilhan Omar be that critical.
Well, that's true, but that's because she's sort of one of them.
Yeah. Jeff, we saw what happened a couple of days ago in London, this stabbing attack. What do we know about the circumstance of this attack and the person who's responsible for it?
Well, obviously it was someone who either had the ideology of one of the various Muslim terror groups. ISIS is taking credit for it. Doesn't really make a difference. The fact is this was a guy who was in prison, who was arrested and convicted of trying to blow up Big Ben, the London Stock Exchange, synagogues in London. So what do the far left, I can't say a bad word because you warned me,
thank you.
So yes. I'm going to bleep myself. He was in jail for a total of 8 years is what he did for
trying to blow up Big Ben.
Yeah, Big Ben, and what he should have been in jail for his life.
Forever.
So because the leftist system that exists in London, they decided, well, of course he can be rehabilitated because we can be rehabilitated. So if we can be rehabilitated, therefore the zombies on Walking Dead, they can be rehabilitated as well. So they let him out, and you know what? Can you imagine what one of the first things he did was?
Went on a stabbing spree.
Shockingly, he tried to kill infidels. And all the people that were arrested for those various terror attacks that I mentioned previously, every one of them is out but one. The other one's coming out next year. This is what London is. This is probably the future of America as long as we allow the leftists to take control, which is what's about to happen. Now, after this occurs, after this savage kills a couple of people, one of them, in fact, was a young man who was working to try to rehabilitate these wild animals. So that's what happens. The fact is you can't rehabilitate them. Jeremy Corbyn, who is running for prime minister as the head of the Labour Party, very well may win. He said afterwards, well, there's no reason why we need to keep these people in jail forever. That's the mistake. That's why London is now becoming Londonstan, which it already is. That's why these terrorists are walking around unmolested. And it's probably coming here, if not next year, in 5 years.
All right, let me ask you about a situation regarding domestic politics. Mike Bloomberg's running for president as a Democrat. And by the way, some breaking news just moments ago. Apparently, the Trump campaign has decided to blacklist Bloomberg News. Now, we told you about Bloomberg News' decision not to do any investigative reporting either on Bloomberg or any of the Democrats running, but they're still going to do it on Trump. So the Trump campaign is responding by completely cutting off Bloomberg News from any access to the campaign whatsoever. They're not going to ride on the campaign plane. They're not going to be on any campaign buses. Not going to have any special access to any campaign officials. They're out. But Bloomberg made quite a bit of news this weekend when he spoke with Margaret Hoover of PBS and said this about China's dictator, President Xi.
Get China, India, and the other countries to be good partners.
China is doing a lot. Yes, they're still building a bunch of coal-fired power plants.
And they're still burning coal.
Yes, they are. But they are now moving plants away from the cities. The Communist Party wants to stay in power in China, and they listen to the public. When the public says, I can't breathe the air, Xi Jinping is not a dictator. He has to satisfy his constituents, or he's not going to survive.
He's not a dictator?
No, he has a constituency to answer to.
One oligarch to call a communist dictator not a dictator. Jeff, your reaction?
I mean, he's obviously demented, I would say, at this point. I mean, I think Mike is about 100 years old at this point. And look, I happen to like him personally. I've spent some time with him. I like him. He's got a very bad potty mouth.
Oh, yeah, it makes you look like a choir boy.
Exactly. So I like him in that sense because of his foul mouth. But the fact is he's a gun confiscator. That's what he is. He's a far leftist.
You're not a big gun guy, though, are you? Are you?
Are you serious?
Yeah, I didn't. You never struck me as a guy that's walking around, well, with a .22 strapped to your belt buckle.
Who would walk around with a .22? That's like a baby gun. 9mm, son. Yes.
Are you? Okay, well,
many guns.
You live and you learn.
Many guns.
Yeah.
Many.
Yeah.
Many.
So gun confiscation.
Sig P320
something tells me
favorite.
you're not the you're not the target voter for a Democratic primary presidential candidate.
I used to be a Democrat, but once they started with Obama and the far left garbage, I bailed on the party after being a member of the party for years.
But if you look at where Obama would fall in the current spectrum
it's
of
100
candidates,
times worse.
with the exception of Bloomberg and maybe Biden, the rest of the party has dramatically shifted away.
Well, it's an overreaction to Trump. I mean, Obama was as left as any of these people, but he knew that he couldn't get elected if he ran on such a platform. And Bloomberg is not dangerous in the sense that he has any chance of winning the election. What he's dangerous for, and we learned this in Virginia the other day, is that he's got a huge amount of money that he's spending on these local races, and he flipped the state, which was red forever, to blue, Virginia. And now the first thing that they're doing in Virginia is trying to confiscate guns. That's what he's running on solely. Well, he's not going to win the election, but he's going to pour so much money in to beat Trump that he is very, very dangerous.
So let me ask you to put your legal analyst cap on for a second. Mike Bloomberg's got a big op-ed today, I think it's in the Chicago Tribune, about the Supreme Court case that they're hearing on gun rights. A lot of gun owners are fearful that this could basically eradicate gun ownership, and then a lot of gun control advocates are frightened by the fact that a conservative majority on this court could eradicate gun control measures, even moderate ones, around the country. How do you see it playing out?
I think it'll fall somewhere in the middle. I don't think that there's going to be massive national gun confiscation, but I do think in many states that are turning blue. Look, you have no idea how difficult it is to even get a gun in New York. I purchased a gun a month ago. I've got a license, completely licensed, everything's legal. I bought the gun. I couldn't leave with the gun. When I left the store, I sniffed it because I knew I was going to miss it for a while. Then I had to apply to alter my license to allow that gun to be added to my license. It's a month later. I still don't have the new license. My gun is sitting there, weeping for me at night, and I can't touch it.
I hear you, but I mean, those gun.
What's the point of a gun if you can't touch it?
Restrictions are in place because New Yorkers voted for people that instituted.
Well, that's what New York is. New York is a leftist.
The frightening thing about when the Supreme Court gets involved is they're essentially saying to legislators, however you voted, it doesn't matter whether it's a left-wing issue
or a right-wing issue. I don't think that the Supreme Court is so far right as you think. I mean, John Roberts, as we know, is a bit of a squish, and he's hardly someone who is a far-right conservative. With regard to gun rights, I mean, look, this is a huge issue. A gun, otherwise you're a maniac. Obviously, it should be somewhere in between. I'm for some gun control. I think that in New York, what they should have is you need to take a psychological test. If you pass the test, like the MMPI, if you pass the test, you get your license. The fact that I have to wait a year to get a license when they give me no psychological testing is simply madness. But that's typical of a far-left toilet bowl that is New York State.
Well, fortunately for us, there is no psychological test in New York or otherwise to be on television. Otherwise, John Tobacco and I certainly wouldn't make it. Jeff, thank you as always.
Thank you.
All right. The one and only Jeffrey Lichtman. Next time he comes on, we're going to really try and get him to express himself and not hold back so much with these opinions. Presidential historian Doug Weed joins me next. He thinks, believe it or not, that Donald Trump is one of our greatest presidents, and not surprisingly, this makes him one of Donald Trump's favorite historians. We'll talk with him next.